Is that too much? Is that too much energy, or is that good? Okay. Anyway, today we're doing. What are we doing?
Ego death.
Today we're gonna do an episode about ego death, something that we find really fascinating. I don't know about you, but I kind of look at it as like a necessary part of the awakening process.
Oh yeah,
you know
absolutely.
what I mean? We're gonna be talking about ego death in this episode, and for those of you who don't know, there's a couple definitions of the word ego. What we are talking about is, I believe, what's considered like the psychological version of what an ego is. And it's essentially like your awareness as a person in this realm, right? Mm-hmm. Is that a decent...
more or less, yeah.
Right. And, therefore ego death being when kind of like your first person perspective is removed from the equation and you're kind of able to experience the world from a point of view other than first person. I feel like that's probably the best way I can explain it right now in this state of mind.
I thought it'd be really cool. Alex, could you look up the definition of an ego from like a psychological perspective?
Yeah. Cause
yes, sir. On it, sir.
I'm certain that...
Get some pep in your damn step.
I'm certain Google can do a better job at defining it than I do.
And then, we have to keep in mind that the psychological perspective varies from the esoteric perspective, which is where I was going to be focusing more of my energy on. But
yeah, sure. But I mean, a lot of people hear ego and they think about like...
And that guy's arrogant.
Yeah, exactly. Arrogance.
Yeah, that's not necessarily what it means.
Or like confidence, delusional confidence, whatever.
While he's looking that up, the way I think about it is like your ego is your attachment to your earth plane identity or your earth plane core concepts or beliefs. It's like, as the Buddhists would say, it's like your attachment to this plane. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And the ego death is the thing that like releases those attachments to where you can think from, higher perspectives and what have you.
Yeah, it allows you to see beyond the realm that you perceive to be confined to.
Were you able to find the definition?
Yeah, so I've got the portion of the human personality which is experienced as the self or I and is in contact with the external world through perception.
Yeah, it's pretty much exactly what Nick said.
Yeah.
Now,
exactly.
Before we get 100%, like it's like you wrote it, dude.
Yeah.
But before we get too deep into the conversation, I wanted to just start off reading some quotes, or I should say not quotes, but excerpts from the Gnostic method. So, when it comes to esotericism, there's not truly one way. You know what I mean? Like, are the Rosicrucians more advanced, or are the Gnostics, or are the Hermetists? I really think that doesn't matter so much, and people shouldn't get so caught up in that. I think you should just take what resonates and what works from all of these schools. So lately, I've been really studying the Gnostic method, just because there's this program that's like really short, sweet, concise, simple to follow. You can read daily little lessons, and lesson 58 talks about psychological death. And then after this, I'm going to skip forward to 64 and read that one real quick too. All right. The planet is on a different time scale than we are. The planet is a living organism, a conscious being that has compassion, who has love. By the way, in 2012, the beings told that to my dad. So that's, again, it brings me back to why I'm always studying this esoteric shit, because it jives with what the being said. It is a compassionate being who has love, but who also acts in accordance with the law. This planet has already destroyed 4 civilizations before ours, and it will destroy ours too. It's only a matter of time. This imaginary line that we've been talking about is the line of time. It ends in death. It always does. It always has. It always will. This line applies to our individual life. Our body will die. This line applies to our societal life. Every civilization in history has died, and so will ours. The question is, who will be prepared to take advantage of that death, to transform that death consciously and utilize it for the benefit of everyone? Even Jesus died in order to resurrect. The Buddha died in order to resurrect. Every great master dies in order to have the resurrection of the spirit. Humanity must die in order for a new age to emerge, for a new humanity to be born. Humanity cannot go forward with all of its pride and anger and lust. Humanity in its current condition is a grotesque creature. Humanity is bound by impurities that cannot rise to heaven, and the only way to remove those impurities is through death. A shepherd who cares for a flock will kill an animal that is killed with infectious, noxious disease because that one sick animal can kill the entire flock. Humanity is a sick animal and cannot be allowed to infect the others in our region of the galaxy. The sickness is psychological. Our sickness is our pride, lust, greed, gluttony, envy, laziness, avarice, etc. And before I move on to that part, I just want to quickly say, very early on in these esoteric schools of thought, you learn that like the secret behind the 7 deadly sins is that they really believe there are 7 ego, or you could say psychic aggregates of thought that infect our consciousness from the moment we're born into this realm. And that's what the 7 deadly sins are. They're like real egos that we have to resist our whole lives. Or as Buddhists would say, we have to resist attachments or addictions because they bring suffering. As individuals, we have a choice. We can engage in that death consciously, willingly, actively engaging in killing the ego ourselves, pursuing our anger and killing it, pursuing our pride and removing it, pursuing our lust and eradicating it. We can consciously choose to do that. That is a psychological death, and through that psychological death comes a psychological resurrection. The soul is born, the spirit is born, a master is born, a Buddha, an angel. The only way to make a Buddha, a master, or an angel is through a psychological death. That is why in all the great stories of all the great masters, they die. They are beheaded, they are crucified, they sacrifice themselves for the benefit of all. Unfortunately, humanity does not want to cast the ego aside. Humanity wants to take the ego to heaven and go to heaven with all of their lust, anger, and pride, etc. And this will never happen. It cannot. The only way to those superior levels is for those aspects of our psyche to die. Nature is participating by helping to resolve the karma, our karma, and helping us to suffer so that we can pay what we owe. No man knows the hour save the Father, but the hour will come. It's in quotes. It's a Bible scripture. Then this planet will undergo a great transformation, and many of us will witness painful things. We will experience events the likes of which us have never seen before. We have a choice. We can avoid it and bury our heads in the sand and watch television and debate politics and stay with our addiction to frivolous materialistic things, or we can learn to transform the experience, learn, and change. It is extremely likely that in the coming days our lives will be dramatically changed and the life of comfort and ease that we have longed for and wanted will be denied to us. It is highly likely that the comfort and ease which we go from day to day will be gone, and we will have to suffer and struggle simply to get by. In that process, we have a choice. Shall we handle it by the guidance of our habits and defects, or by the guidance of the divine? The training that I have been explaining to you to self-observe and self-remember has a supreme significance because it is the doorway. I'm almost done with this. Because it's the doorway to developing a truly spiritual life. The doorway to real spiritual advancement is not in the future. It is not in the projected line of going forward from this moment. Your spiritual advancement is not in the future. It is not available tomorrow. It is not possible after you finish your big project. It's not possible after you get your degree or after you get married. It is not in the future. It is not found after you find a good school or a good church, or after you read that book, or after you have learned this or that skill in meditation or self-remembering. It is not in the future. The doorway to spiritual advancement is right here, right now, and it will always be right here, right now. It will never be in the future. It will never be dependent on any external circumstance. It is always dependent on your state of being right now. Your state of consciousness determines your spiritual life. And then one more, which this one is I found really particularly mind-blowing.
I find that one super interesting. Like the way that it described that, it feels like that is a really genuine depiction of the world that we live in.
Now,
and I feel like the reason that I love that they say like your spiritual salvation, whatever, the awakening, it's not in the future. It's because spirits don't abide to time.
Right.
There is no time to a spirit. It's literally always right here, right now.
It's about becoming awake and conscious and making the choice now. It's like in the Matrix. They told you the truth. You have the red pill and the blue pill, but all that really boils down to is it's a choice. You know, it's like you can choose to stay asleep in your consciousness, and that's symbolized by taking the blue pill, and then he goes back to his job. Or if you take the red pill, which means he's taking the choice right now to like follow that thread and go through that path of awakening and becoming the one. And by taking that pill, he goes down through all these rabbit holes. Remember, he had to follow the white rabbit and all that shit. And then boom, he's the one. He's an enlightened master. He's saving the realm, you know? And that's what I believe that really means. And if you think about it, Neo died too.
Yeah.
All the great sages die. This one is a little lengthy, but it's really profound.
Go for it.
Okay. This one is about the myth or the symbolism of decapitation. What's up?
Whoa. Everybody cuddle up by the fire with a nice warm blanket and a nice beverage and a snack, and it's story time.
And you know what? Right? Smoke if you want to.
Yeah, smoke if you want. Smoke them if you got them. Yeah, we're going to have a little...
Cigar or other.
Yeah, we're going to have a story time from Papa Ryan.
Okay, decapitation. As one works on oneself, one comprehends more and more the necessity of radically eliminating from one's inner nature all that which makes us so abominable. The worst circumstances of life, the most critical situations, and the most difficult deeds are always marvelous for intimate self-discovery. The most secret eyes... not as in eyeballs, but as in like I, the ego. The most secret eyes always surface in those unsuspected critical moments and when we least expect them. Unquestionably, if we are alert, we discover ourselves. The most tranquil moments of life are precisely the least favorable for the work upon oneself. Oh, wow. You ever notice in like really traumatic situations, you're like super hyper alert and vigilant, your adrenaline is crazy, and you're
Absolutely.
like, you feel alive.
Yeah.
That shit's when it's real. Like what my sister said, like she feels alive when she's seeing the lights. Everything else feels fake.
Yeah.
You know?
Yet you have such a hard time remembering those moments.
Right.
Not me, bro. You know, see, those super hyper vigilant states, they're always burned in my memory.
See, I'm thinking more like almost got in a car crash, almost like NDEs. Is that what they call them? Yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
I
NDE
feel
means near death experience.
Right. But like when you're maxed out on adrenaline, I always feel like once you come down, you just don't have that memory.
I feel
Not
like
me.
those are on the more like traumatic side of these types of experiences. Like there are positive versions of what you're talking about, but yeah.
Like seeing the lights, you know?
Yeah, exactly.
Moments in life exist which are too complicated. In those moments, we have the marked tendency of identifying easily with the events and completely forgetting about ourselves. In those instances, we do foolish things which lead nowhere. If in those moments we are alert, if instead of losing our minds, we remember our own selves, we then would discover with astonishment certain eyes whose possibility of existence we never suspected in the least. The sense of intimate self-observation is atrophied in every human being. Yet, such a sense will develop in a progressive manner by working seriously, by observing oneself from moment to moment, staying present. Thus, as the sense of self-observation gradually develops through its continuous use, we shall become more capable each time of directly perceiving those eyes whose existence we previously never had the least bit of data about. Indeed, while in the sight of the sense of inner self-observation, each of those eyes or egos which inhabit our interior assume this or that figure. This figure is secretly related to the defect that is personified within it. Undoubtedly, the image of each of those eyes has a certain unmistakable psychological flavor. We, through this image, instinctively apprehend, capture, trap its inner nature and the defect which characterizes it. In the beginning, the esotericist has no idea where to start. He feels the necessity of working on himself, but is completely disoriented. Yet, if we take the advantage of the critical moments, of the more unpleasant situations, the most adverse instances, we shall then discover, if we are alert, our outstanding defects, the eyes that we must urgently disintegrate. Sometimes one can begin with anger or pride, or with the wretched second of lust, etc. However, if we truly want a definite change, it is necessary to take note of our daily psychological states. Before going to bed, it's wise to examine the events that occurred throughout the day, the embarrassing situations, the thunderous laughter of Aristophanes, or the subtle smile of Socrates. It is possible that we have hurt someone with a laugh, or that we caused someone to fall ill with a smile, or with a look that was out of place. Let us remember that in pure esotericism, good is all that is in its place. Bad is all that is out of its place. For instance, water is good in its place, but if it's out of place, it floods the house. Then it would cause damage. It would be bad and harmful. Likewise, fire in the kitchen, when it's in its place, beside being useful, is good. Yet the fire out of its place, burning the furniture in the living room, would be bad and harmful. Thus, any virtue, no matter how holy it might be, is good in its place, but bad and harmful out of its place. We can harm others with our virtues. Therefore, it is indispensable to place virtues in their corresponding place. What would you say about a priest who preaches the word of the Lord inside of a brothel? What would you say about a meek and tolerant male who blesses a gang of assailants attempting to rape his wife and daughters? What would you say about the type of tolerance taken to such an extreme? What would you say about the charitable attitude of a man who, instead of taking food home, shares his money amongst beggars who have a vice? What would be your opinion of a helpful man who in a given moment lends a dagger to a murderer? Remember that crime also hides within the rhythm of poetry. There's much virtue in the perverse one, as much evil in the virtuous one. Even though it may appear incredible, crime also hides in the very perfume of prayer. Crime disguises itself as a saint. It uses the best virtues. It presents itself as a martyr and even officiates in the sacred temples. As the sense of intimate self-observation develops in us, through its continuous use, we can see all those egos that serve as a basic foundation to our individual temperament, whether it be sanguine or nervous, phlegmatic or bilious, whatever the hell that means. Although you may not believe it, the fact is that behind the temperament that we possess within the most remote profundities of our psyche, the most abominable diabolic creations are hidden. To see such creations, to observe these monstrosities of hell within our very own same consciousnesses imprisoned, is only possible with the ever-progressive development of the sense of intimate self-observation. Therefore, as long as a human being has not dissolved these creations of hell, these aberrations of himself, undoubtedly in the deepest part, in the most profound part of him, he will continue being something that must not exist, a deformity and abomination. You notice in these esoteric texts, they use a lot of hyperbole to really get points across. But also, I just wanted to quickly say in the previous lessons, they talk about how at any given, and Buddhists teach this too, they call it skandhas. At any given moment in time, whether it's Buddhism or esotericism, they believe that you're not just you. There's not just one you. Actually, you are a bundle or an aggregate of thousands of different subtle emotional perceptions existing within you that are fighting for consciousness at each given moment. That's why when you're angry, you're a different Nick or Alex or Ryan. When you're happy, you're a different, those are different subtle forms of consciousness that are fighting to be conscious. And that's what the whole point of this is about. Is it's about like staying conscious of your psychological nature to stifle those abominations, those negative sides of yourself, or as they say, these evil abominations of hell locked in your consciousness. It's just metaphor.
Sure.
It's about being present. The most critical aspect of all this is that the abominable person does not become aware of his own abomination. He believes himself to be beautiful. That's somebody with a big ego, right? They're not aware of the bad. Just a good person, and he even complains about the lack of comprehension of others. He laments his ingratitude of his fellow men. He says they do not understand him. He cries affirming that they owe him, that they've paid him back with black coins, etc. The sense of intimate self-observation allows us to verify for ourselves and in a direct manner the secret work by which in a given time we are dissolving this or that psychological defect, possibly discovered in difficult conditions and when we least expect it. I'm going to skip forward a little bit to the actual decapitation part.
I forgot this was about decapitation.
Yeah, no, that part's really cool.
Oh, yeah.
Because it's a lot of being like, couldn't you be quiet when someone gossiped? Couldn't you this and that?
Right.
You get that point. Let's see here.
It's very expository, like the Bible.
Yeah. Well, these are lectures.
Right.
These were like actual lectures that were annotated. So I'm going to skip a little bit. Yeah. In the beginning, these creations of hell, these psychic aberrations that unfortunately characterize you are more ugly and monstrous than the most horrendous beasts that exist at the bottom of the oceans or in the most profound jungles of the earth. Yet as you advance in your work, you will be able to, I don't know this word, actually. I've never seen it. Events through the sense of internal self-observation, the outstanding fact that those abominations lose bulk, they grow smaller. As they decrease in size, they lose bulk and become smaller, they gain in beauty. They slowly assume a childlike figure. Finally, they disintegrate, they become a cloud of cosmic dust. Then the imprisoned essence is liberated, it is emancipated, it is awakened. Unfortunately, the mind cannot fundamentally alter any psychological defect. The intellect itself can give the luxury of naming a defect with this or that name, justifying it or passing it from one level to another, but it cannot by itself annihilate it. We need a flaming power superior to the mind, a power that by itself is capable of reducing this or that defect to a mere cloud of cosmic dust. Fortunately, there exists in us marvelous fire that the ancient medieval alchemists baptized with the mysterious name of Selamaris, the Virgin of the Sea, the Azoth of the Science of Hermes, Tonantzin of Aztec Mexico, the derivative from our own intimate being, Godmother within our interior, who is always symbolized with the sacred serpent of the great mysteries. If after having observed and profoundly comprehended this or that psychological defect, we beg our individual cosmic mother, since each of us has his own, to reduce to a cloud of cosmic dust those defects. The motive, that this is the true motive of our interior work. Then you can be sure that it will lose mass and it will slowly be pulverized. I'm going to skip forward one more time. No radical psychological change is possible if we do not first pass through. Oh, here we go. Okay, obviously the Stella Maris has the effective power to disintegrate the aberrations that we carry in our psychological interior.
What is the Stella Maris?
It's just an esoteric word for Azoth or spirit or force.
Oh, okay.
You know, they have all these different labels for that Kundalini energy.
Gotcha.
The decapitation of John the Baptist is something that invites us to reflect. No radical psychological change is possible if we do not first pass through decapitation. Our very own derivative being, Tonant Zen, Stella Maris, etc., as an electrical power is unknown to the entire humanity, yet she abides latent in the depth of our psyche. Clearly, she enjoys the power that permits her to decapitate any ego before its final disintegration. This is the philosophical fire that is found latent in all inorganic and organic matter. Psychological impulses can provoke the intensive action of such a fire, and then decapitation is made possible. Let's see here. Back to the part of John the Baptist.
Keep singing.
It's got a lot of
it's
expounding. As majestic as we may seem inside our temples or inside our classrooms of light and harmony, as serene and sweet as we may seem to our fellow men, as reverent and humble as we may appear, the abominations of hell and the monstrosities of the wars continue to exist at the bottom of our psyche.
Sounds like the Bible.
John the Baptist taught us the secret way to die in oneself through psychological decapitation. Now, what's so profound about that is, I'm just going to put this down. I don't need to read any more of this. I want to talk now.
Okay.
So, if you know the story of John the Baptist, you know, the exoteric version, John the Baptist was Jesus' cousin, right?
Right.
If you really get down and dirty into it, he was known as an ascetic, which is a term that means like he's somebody, like monks, you know, they like live out in the wilderness or they live in monasteries. They live far removed from society. In the story, John the Baptist wore like animal skin clothes and like weird sandals made of like animal leather and just had this really natural look in the way that he dressed that was like ancient compared to society at the time. And actually, I was at the Louvre in Paris this past year, and they had this really cool depiction of John the Baptist, but he was actually, this is a real like famous Renaissance painting. He was esoterically painted as Dionysus.
Oh, what?
John the Baptist is seen as like a modern or like a like an esoteric Christian version of Dionysus. Because if you think about it, Dionysus is like this mystery cult figure who's like, you know, gorging on grapes and like has the pine cone staff and is out in the wilderness communing with nature. John the Baptist is a version of that in the Bible. And in the story, John the Baptist is the one who takes his cousin Jesus out into the River Jordan and baptizes him and like transfers the initiatory power for him to begin his ministries.
Right.
And if you study the esoteric, etymology of John the Baptist, or maybe it's not about etymology, but it's about like the meaning of his name and his story and the secret behind it. He's known as what they would say is the sound before the light. You know, like in the creation of the universe, you have this bang, right? There's like there's this explosion of cosmic energy from this single infinite point. And then all the light it's exploding outward and it's reaching all the far reaches of the universe. But it's, what do all the scriptures say? In the beginning was the Word. You know, it's like the universe is created through frequency, vibration.
Right.
And then there was light, right? Like even in the Bible, in the Genesis story, it's like, you know, God spoke his word and then there's light on X amount of day, whatever. It's always the sound before the light.
Yeah.
And in the story of John the Baptist, he's decapitated and his head is put on a silver platter and it's presented to the king. King Herod. And what they're presenting here in these esoteric texts is like the secret meaning behind that is not that some man was probably literally decapitated, but it's a metaphor that in order to reach the ascension of these ancient initiates, you had to go through the spiritual decapitation.
Which
it's
would be
ego death.
Yeah, the removing of ego.
Yeah.
Wow.
It's the
dude.
psychic power that causes you to reach higher levels of consciousness.
Wow, that's
Well,
seriously profound.
That's it. Wrap the episode. Pack it up.
Whatever.
And then of course you go forward, and then Jesus dies. And again, was he literally crucified on a cross? I don't know. I'm not convinced of that. Maybe he was. Maybe you have two versions of the story here. Maybe they have the mythologized version where he like rose and became a god because that sounded badass as fuck. And maybe like in real life, he honestly was a dude walking around spreading mysteries to all the free people, waking them up, and they capped him, But
Yeah.
either way, it's like, it's crazy. Like, you cannot deny the ego death as in terms of like esotericism and consciousness and Buddhism, and especially Tibetan Buddhism, isn't so intimately linked as the initiatory transition into like the realm of consciousness, psychic gifts. And like, for example, my dad, he had his first near-death experience at 2 years old.
Damn. This is the shotgun thing?
Nope, that was when he was 10. His first was he fell in a fire.
Oh.
He fell into a fire pit, and they had to like yank him out of the fire, and like he had 3rd-degree burns on his body. And like the point I bring that up is like, I believe, in this rare exception, maybe my dad has had always these crazy paranormal things happening around him because he had been having ego deaths his entire life, almost dying. He's had like he's had at least 3 genuine near-death experiences where he was, at one time he was declared dead. And,
Right.
I just thought that was really cool, the whole esoteric angle of John the Baptist being decoded as a metaphor for
Yeah,
us.
because you don't see a lot of metaphor. I mean, I could totally be wrong about this, but you don't see a ton of metaphor regarding specifically ego death in that way. And I really feel like now hearing that, I feel like a lot of like mythologies or a lot of esoteric texts and stuff, when they reference death, that's probably what they're talking about.
Yeah. In the myths, in the ancient myths, it's like in every single one of them, the savior figure dies, symbolically goes to the underworld, usually for 3 days.
Yeah.
And then they're reborn, and then boom, they save the world, or they preach enlightenment, or whatever.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. So why? Here's a really interesting thing around ego death is thinking about why specifically it's important, or not even important, but what is the benefit of ego death? So one thing. Well, I'd like to hear from you guys first. Actually, what do you guys think like the benefit would be to having that kind of experience where yourself, quote unquote, is removed and you are observing without that first person perspective?
I think people think about ego death, or at least I did before. You think about it like, oh man, you'll never be the same.
Right.
But it's not true. You're just like, you're able to think about things differently. And I believe the benefit of ego death is like when we're born here, all we've ever known are things that we have personally perceived. Mm-hmm. Anything. If there's some data you know in your mind, you either heard it with your ears, you read it with your eyes, you tasted it with your tongue. You know the flavor of grapes because you've eaten them.
Yeah.
Or go so on and so forth. Hot because you feel it on your skin. Everything you have ever known has only been through the perception.
Through your 5 senses. Yeah.
And I believe ego death is the function of consciousness that like, I think it allows you to activate your higher senses that are not necessarily contingent on the physical body. Mm-hmm. Your 6th sense of consciousness, of perception of the subtle realms, or all the remote viewing shit, I think it's possible to reach ego death or those levels of consciousness through strict meditation protocols.
Absolutely. That's what the like Tibetan monks and like gurus, and we talked in the Ram Dass episode, we talked about what was the guru's name?
Neem Karoli Baba?
No, not Neem Karoli Baba. The other guy, the one who was Ram Dass's guru.
That's the same guy.
Oh, it is?
Maharaji.
Okay, same guy. Okay, yeah.
His name was Neem Karoli Baba.
Right. They talked about that in that documentary quite a bit.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like the importance of it.
It's the same outcome.
Exactly.
Like meditation is the it's the optimal it's the ideal least risk involved path.
Yeah.
You know, but like then you have.
Well, it's also the lasting path.
Right.
You know what I mean? You're not just
exactly.
Because what did he say in that documentary? Oh, he said like basically with psychedelics you get like a quick glimpse.
Psychedelics is like steroids.
Right.
Like it'll get you the muscles, but you know,
it won't last.
Yeah, it doesn't really like teach you how to get the muscles.
Exactly.
You know, it's real, but
it's like catching a man a fish. Catching a fish for a man without teaching him how to catch fish.
Right.
Catching a man a fish.
Hey, that's still grammatically correct.
I am fish man.
Catching a man fish.
But like, you know, it's the way I think about it is. People are very. I only say this because I'm somebody who is a little bit of an unusual case. You know, growing up with just literally seeing things with my naked eyeballs, like literally just outside looking at the night sky, seeing shit that when I talk about it to people, it freaks them out.
Yeah.
And having like witnessed so many hundreds of people or maybe even thousands at this point, you know, having witnessed firsthand, seeing how people react to this information, it's like because of an ego, people are so attached. It's like you have psychological anchors into our worldviews, into our belief systems, into our very perceptive models of reality, you know, and as long as the ego is very strong and intact in this way of talking about the ego in the esoteric sense, like it is shown in psychology to actually be, it triggers pain responses in the body to experience information that challenges our perception of the world. You know what I mean? And like,
That's where like the anxiety and stuff comes from.
That's why you have all this conversation on the internet of everybody freaking the fuck out and treating each other like crap because they all have different political opinions or spiritual opinions or I like this better than that. And, you know, because people have such an attachment psychologically to these ideas that they're like warlike over it or, you know, y'all, you're crazy or this or that. And I think like really out of the box here, I think that's what the awakening of consciousness in the age of Aquarius is about. I think it'll be more so along the lines of like our collective consciousness having an ego death.
Right. Oh, wow.
I don't think it's necessarily like we're going to physically be obliterated. I think we're going to have that moment where the entire realm is going to have its collective ego death and we'll all be able to move forward from that. What's that going to involve? The lights.
Right.
You know, seeing the lights. But
Alex, did you have anything? Did you have a different answer?
Yeah, I think my take on it is kind of like I'm a tech guy. So like doing a hard restart on your phone, like shutting things off completely. And you kind of, a little bit contrary to what you said, in my opinion, you get rid of a lot of these senses.
Yeah.
And you just are. And so it's like, you know, you don't have a job, you don't have responsibilities, you are just a fragile piece of life. And that's humbling and it's scary, but it's also kind of a tool where you can kind of find what really matters. And what really matters is like the love and the feelings. Because as you sort of regain your ego, you start thinking, well, why do I do this? Why do I do that? Like, this isn't needed, but I still do it anyway, which a lot of people talk about some depression coming out of using substances that would cause ego death.
Sure, yeah.
And I think that's why I think you go to this pure am state, not are, I guess. Like you just are a piece of life. And then you've got to go back to your day job and you've got to go back to these things that you're doing for what reason. And you kind of fall out of this cosmic sort of love of just being alive.
Yeah, so it's like it recontextualizes life and shows you what's really important is kind of what you're saying.
I think so. I definitely think, like I said, you don't want to hard restart your phone all the time.
Yeah, right.
You know, you don't want to do this way too often. But
yeah. I have a third thing which is cool. We all have different things. For me, the coolest thing about ego death is in the removal of self, you realize that you are connected with every living thing on the planet.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like I've had ego death experiences where I'm looking at someone else and I thought I was looking at myself. I've had ego death experiences where like I was flooded with the emotions the other person was feeling. Like,
yeah,
it's very, very, very strange. But even just like a more fundamental thing, kind of being stripped away from the self that you've been viewing life through your entire life, you realize like, oh man, my personality, who I think I am as a person, like my interests, my temperament, all those things. It's like, yeah, but is that really who you are though? It's like, no, it seems like who we are is something deeper and like way more meaningful. And who we are is like, we're connected. That's who we are. We are one big thing.
Pete Holmes said it very well. He was like, you are the perception between all of those thoughts.
Right.
You know what I mean? You're
That's
not those thoughts.
Behind all of those thoughts. Yeah.
You're the force that's just purely observing.
Yes.
You're not even the thinking.
Awareness.
Yeah, you're the being.
Right.
And when you think about it, it sounds like, oh, well, duh.
Yeah.
That's why we say that. But we've lost touch with that. But, you know, like, fortunately, the esotericists teach how to reach this ego death, so to speak. It doesn't have to be in the form of like, damn, I took mushrooms or DMT or acid. Right. Like, you don't have to do that. Fortunately, you can become conscious and present of who you are. The most probably, in my opinion, this is one of the most very powerful esoteric quotes in all of history, and it was said by Socrates, know thyself. The meaning behind that is exactly all this stuff, being intimately and presently at every given moment aware of yourself, your inner nature. You know, like for most people, I think, especially somebody with a really big ego who's like never looked at the mirror one day of their life and be like, man, I'm an asshole. You know what I mean? But like most people, I think, are very scared to sit alone with their thoughts and feelings because they're afraid of what they're going to see about themselves.
Oh, 1,000%, dude. One of like the coolest songs ever, that song Car Radio by 21 Pilots. Do you know the...
No.
Dude, he the whole thing is about how like sometimes quiet is violent. That's one of the things. The song is
vitriol.
About... Right, yeah. The song is basically like, somebody stole my car radio, so now when I drive to work or when I drive around, I just have to think. And I just have to like be with myself, and that's really scary. Yeah. And like, I mean, dude, why do you think? I mean, I'm getting much better with it now, but there was a time in my life where like I couldn't function if I didn't have like 3 screens going on
just
at the
like
same time.
Stimulation, like give me music.
So wake up, pick up my phone, TikTok, Instagram, go straight from that to watching TV to also being on my phone at the same time, and then go to my desk where I'm watching a podcast, playing a video game, and something else is going on all at one time. And it's like, so many of us, not all of us, so many of us are desperate to flood our senses.
Yeah.
So that we don't have to think at all below the surface. And to me, those are the worst states of mind that I could be in. When I notice that I'm seeking that overstimulation, I know I'm really in a rut.
You know what? I just had a profound like realization that relates to that. My wife and I have been talking since before the new year about getting back into yoga. We haven't done yoga together in like well over 5 years. Before we lived in Wilmington, we went a couple times. We loved it, but like, you know, we moved here, so we never got back into it. Anyway, so I've had the flu this past week, and she, like, it's like the second week of the year. She's dying to go, and she's like, come on, let's go. I'm like, I can't. I'm too sick. So she just said, you know what? I'll scope it out. I'm going to go without you.
Yeah.
And she's gone with some of her coworkers. She's gone to, like, I don't know, 3 or 4 sessions now. And she was telling us last night, like, how wonderful she feels just being there for an hour and being forced at the direction of the teacher to like just sit there in present silent meditation and just focus on her body and how it feels and nothing else. And essentially it's like, you know, meditation, and she's been in an amazing mood. She's been very high energy, like, let's get shit done. Meanwhile, I've been sitting around with the flu, sleeping on the couch, like playing video games, wishing my body didn't hurt. But like, honestly, that's kind of crazy when you think about it. Like, that's why meditation is so important, because and yoga, I think, is like a form of meditation.
Yeah,
that's, why I brought that up. But
sure,
we are constantly flooded with so much anxious stimulation.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Which feeds the anxiety.
Exactly.
Makes it worse.
Yeah. Like, just crazy, bro. Like, constantly going to work, and then, you know, we're driving in a car down a highway, blasting shit on the stereo.
Yeah,
we're looking at our phone all day. Like, this society is just like fueled by anxiety. Without anxiety, this wouldn't exist.
Oh yeah, totally. And I think vice versa, you know, is the truth as well. But yeah, I mean, we're constantly desperate to just get rid of any sort of thought, that any reflection, any self-reflection, because we don't even, so many of us, I feel like don't even love ourselves.
Yeah.
Like, so many people just don't love themselves. It's like, if you think about yourself as another person, you know, just imagine for a second, you're another person and you're looking at yourself. It's like, I think so many people out there would like not want to spend time with that person because they don't want to face who they are, because then they have to like correct things. They have to work on themselves. And so many people just don't want to do that. But like, when you truly start loving yourself, that stuff goes away. That stuff, and you just accept yourself. You love yourself for exactly who you are. That stuff will melt away. Like, it's the truth. I found that through personal experience.
I've got a funny story about that, actually.
Oh, yeah. I want to hear it.
Ryan, you know this person. I'm not going to name names, but this person started working with me, and I just didn't like them. And I like, they didn't do anything to me. They didn't do anything wrong. I was just like, gosh, I just don't really like that person. And as we started to work together, come to find out, we are the same exact personality type. But I consider myself someone, like, I love myself. Yeah. Don't get me wrong. Yeah. I think that's apparent now.
That's obvious. That's obvious.
No, but
all
like,
of us.
I didn't like this person. And then after a year and a half of working with them, like, we came around, we became friends, right?
Yeah,
and then I found that out, and I was like, wow, like, big introspective moment for me. Like, I bet that's why I didn't like that person, you know.
I have an idea on who it is.
You
I'll
know
ask
who
you
it
after.
is. Yeah, you know exactly who it is.
And I loved this person from the fucking start. Which makes sense, you know.
You loved Alex from the start. Yeah, exactly. There you go. Yeah.
And still do.
I'm pretty sure I know who you're talking about.
No, and I also feel like so many people, that's such a foreign concept for people, like loving themselves.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
You're not encouraged to do that.
No, not at all. In fact, you know, I remember kind of the first time hearing the concept of loving yourself, and the idea around it was almost like narcissistic in my mind.
Or it's like egotistical.
Exactly. But it's like, no, dude, just like the most profound thing that made it click in my head that I ever heard was Casey, my wife. You know, I was going through a tough time and I was kind of down on myself and just kind of doing really bad self-talk and that kind of stuff. This was a long time ago, but you know, she kind of had to like shake me awake and just be like, would you talk to your niece and nephew that way? Would you say those things about your niece? Would you say those things to Ryan, Jacob, your friends? Would you talk like that to them? If they came to you with a genuine problem and they were like distraught, is that the advice you're going to give them? It's just like, well, you suck. Well, you suck. Yeah, obviously you're not doing enough. You're not trying hard enough. You're not good enough. I was like, absolutely not. Never in a million years. And she's like, then why would you do that to yourself?
Yeah.
And that finally made it click in my head like,
makes sense.
Oh my God, I'm the only person on this planet that is going to spend every second with me. I'll spend a lot of time with my wife, a lot of time throughout my life with my wife, but I'm still going to spend more time with me than anybody else.
Yeah.
So like, let's get to know each other. Let's like each other so that this isn't torturous. You know what I mean? And it finally just started to shift and click in my mind like, oh yeah, I can just be nice to myself. And that's like a good thing, you know? And that happened after my first ego death experience.
Yeah,
By the way, just to put it out there, if anybody's curious, my first ego death experience was just I smoked way too much weed, and I think other people out there can probably relate. Like this is like the third time I ever smoked weed, and it was just way too much.
Well, you know, the truth behind that is when your body has not been introduced to cannabinoids, you know, obviously it has a cannabinoid system, and when it's like barely ever been introduced to that before, it's a well-known thing that people with early experiences with this, it can be downright psychedelic.
Oh, it was. It
is
was.
technically a psychoactive plant in high enough doses, especially with somebody who hasn't had it, but a handful of times, it can be psychedelic.
It was literally like the first 2 times I had ever done it, I had like taken a couple of hits, and then the third time, for whatever reason, I just thought I was big shit pimping, and they were passing this thing around, and I was like, I got it, no problem. Bro, it was like 6 hours of pure hell. I had to call my wife to leave work to come home and take care of me. I had no clue what was going on. I was like, I couldn't remember anybody's names. I was just like, you know, she's like asking me questions, and I was just like, I don't know. I didn't feel like I was a person. I felt like I was floating above myself, looking down at myself. But then after the experience, I was flooded with this crazy amount of compassion for myself, which I did not expect to happen.
Yeah, that's pretty profound.
I was just thinking like, oh, wow, this is just a nightmarish, shitty situation that I'm just going to never do again. But what I did not expect was, I was so emotionally overwhelmed in a positive way afterwards that I walked away from that kind of like, it put me on the path of like self-improvement, I feel. That ego death experience put me on the path of being more compassionate.
Yeah, so I've got a question for you guys.
Yeah.
I told Ryan, you guys know I was going to give you a little pushback on this one because I'm not going to be aliens advocate.
Gray's advocate.
Crazy
Right.
advocate.
So my question.
Yeah.
When you're being nice to yourself, when you're loving yourself, are you loving yourself? Are you loving the ego? Or are you loving both and all of it?
All of it. I think you're loving.
Yeah, I mean, it's back to the loving awareness thing. You're supposed to love everything and everybody, and that's the way out of here.
Yeah.
But I would to elaborate a little on that. Personally, you know, we experience this entire realm through our 5 senses. You know, so we don't really have a way to relate to or love our like true self because we don't even understand it. You know what I mean? It's extremely foreign.
It can only be understood through meditation.
Exactly, because no matter how much thinking or... by the way, this is a long-running issue for me. Is philosophizing... That's not a word.
I don't think so.
There's no way that's a word.
No.
So please figure out what the proper word would be for that because I want to stop sounding like an idiot. Anyway.
Just own it, dude. Make it.
No, I know. I say it all the time.
Create
I still say philosophizing all the time because I don't care to sound eloquent.
Yeah, who cares?
But anyway, yeah, it's like we could think about it. We could philosophize about it as much as we want, but we're not going to get to that place of understanding our true core self through that. Like you said, it's through meditation. And therefore, my personal journey with loving myself is loving the parts that I didn't previously love about myself, which is like, you know, just the horrible negative self-talk. You're lazy, you're fat, you're stupid.
And that all comes from outside.
Oh, yeah.
That's programmed into your brain because people say these things to you or about you. That's the hard part. Like, we are trained to be negative about ourselves.
Yeah.
You know, you go to school, you fail a test, you get a fucking F.
Not only that, and then you come home and your parents whip you with a belt.
Exactly. That's what I'm saying.
Oh,
like,
my God.
It sounds silly, but like, we are not from a young age encouraged to be kind to ourselves.
No.
We're encouraged to be more than enough.
You know what, man?
So,
go ahead.
Well, yeah, not to cut you off, but while we're here, philosophied.
Huh?
The past tense of philosophy is
No,
philosophy.
I'm talking... Never mind, just move past it.
All right, whatever. all right.
I'm going to keep saying philosophizing.
That's why, like, so I think ego death's important. I think everything that you said is super important. But I also think that completely neglecting the ego is doing yourself a disservice. And in this life, you have to understand that this is a part of you, and a tool for this reality, and that you need to harness that and use that tool to the best of its ability. And, you know, going along with loving yourself, like, you have got to tell yourself that you're hot shit. You know, like, and if that's what it takes, and I don't think that's being egotistical, but I think that's kind of utilizing the ego in the best way possible. And I think everything accomplished in this plane, in this reality, the material reality, like, you can accomplish a lot non-materialistically without ego, and you accomplish more without ego non-materialistically.
Sure.
But I think a lot of things that are accomplished materialistically in this reality, you have to utilize that ego to get you there.
Well, dude, what you're describing is pretty straightforward. It's like, if you want material gains, you got to use your material body. If you want spiritual gains, you got to use your spiritual.
It's like, yeah, bro,
Right,
the
right.
ego is important because you got to make money.
Yeah, exactly. It's
Yeah,
like,
Well,
if
that's
we're playing-
that's precisely
I
what
don't
I'm
care
saying.
about money.
If I'm playing light being advocate here, he's gonna be gray advocate. I'm gonna be light being advocate.
What
Yeah,
does that
well, I
make
don't want to
me?
argue with you because
Light
you're
being
right.
advocate.
You're
We're
right.
on the couch.
Okay.
Yeah,
So
it's
this
us
is the
versus
light
him.
being advocate couch.
Yeah.
It's us versus him.
It's got to be. That's
That's
the only way.
that's the way the room's
So from
set
this
up.
episode forward, the podcast is versus Alex.
It always has been.
Okay, cool. Okay, I just needed to make sense.
BSSVA.
Yeah.
But I'm just saying, like, I think humility is more important than all that. Like,
I agree.
money don't mean a fucking thing.
Yeah, it
you know, like, sure it does. Yeah, it can make you live comfortably.
You know why?
but-
My love don't cost a thing. Come on now.
Dude, I'm blanking on who that is. I'm so bad.
Wait, it's J-Lo, right? It's J-Lo. Anyway, I wanted to say something.
know.
I wanted to say something about, the self-talk, the negative reinforcement. I feel like so many, speaking specifically from my childhood perspective.
It's J-Lo.
It is J-Lo? Thanks.
I would have never known that.
Yeah, I know. Anyway, as a kid, I vividly remember failing tests, forgetting to do my chores, or not doing them right, or I just remember it seemed as a kid, I truly felt when I was like cognizant, I felt like my whole life was like a line of dominoes just falling over, just failure after failure after failure after failure after failure. Because all I heard from everybody around me, my teachers, my bullies at school, my parents, was like, what you're doing is not good enough. What you're doing, really, like, I never even heard a whole lot of like, what you're doing is good, or
Right.
hey, you did this right, but let's adjust this a little bit, and I think you'll be golden. It was nothing like that. It was just always like, you're failing at this, and it's your fault, and this, that, and the other. And truly, I felt like every time one of those things happened and I got that negative feedback, it felt like it was causing this split in my brain to happen, where it was like I was running away from all of those responsibilities, whether it was chores or getting good grades or whatever, running away from them entirely because I was scared of the repercussions, which then, of course, would cause me to get more repercussions because I wasn't doing the things.
Right.
So it was like, it literally felt like a never-ending line of falling dominoes.
But what is that? That's the law of attraction.
yeah.
You were attracting those constant feedback loops of that negative state of anxiety.
Yeah.
Obviously, unconsciously, you weren't doing that on purpose, but that's law of attraction. That's how it
Dude,
works.
now
And
that
that's to come back to his point. I'm sorry, what were you going to say?
Oh, yeah. I was going to say, now that I think about it, now that we're talking about it, like, I feel like I felt like that all the way up until the point where I started being nice to myself, like, which was like 3 or 4 years ago, like not that long ago. So I feel like the majority of my life I've been like pretty down on myself, just like not feeling like I could accomplish a whole lot. And, you know, that's a vicious cycle in itself, because if you're not accomplishing things, you have no motivation to accomplish things. It wasn't until I started being nice to myself and saying, like, you got it, you could do it, it's all good, you could do it, that I actually started getting stuff done.
Yeah.
You know, even small things. And honestly, if I could give one piece of advice to every listener out there, relish in every tiny little victory. Everything.
Every tiny, that's why they say count your blessings.
When you get out of bed in the morning, that's a victory.
It's just retraining your brain to be consciously aware of all of, you could say, blessings or victories or positive rewards or experiences in your life. The more you are aware of those, you're going to attract more.
Yeah, I
don't even think about the losses.
Right, yeah, and that's one of the things that my dad instilled in me from a young age was the perspective. He was always about he has a little nickname for himself. He calls himself Mr. Perspective sometimes when he talks about this kind of stuff.
Your dad's a clown, dude. In the best way.
Yeah, absolutely. Way. And
he's Robert McDonald, bro.
Yeah. By the way, Dad, if you're seeing this, I love you so much, and I'm so proud of you. You have gone through such a profound transformation. I couldn't be more proud of you.
He's a lyricologist, brother.
He is a lyricologist. Yeah. I love you, Dad. One of the really important things he instilled into me from a young age is, like, there are always people who have it worse. So be grateful for every little thing you have.
Yeah.
Be grateful for everything. It can always be worse. And somebody in your town has it worse than you. Some people have it worse. So, like, it's hard what you're going through right now, but just be thankful that it's not worse. Be thankful it's not. Always be thankful it's not worse. And I never forgot that. I carry that around subconsciously always.
Your dad has some pretty profound insights on, like, faith and prayer. We definitely got to get him on. But, like, he blew my mind when we were at his house a couple months ago, and he told us the story about how he was like $28 short on like his mortgage or something like that.
Yeah.
And he got a check from the power company, I guess it was Duke or whoever Energy, within like 10 cents short of that amount that he needed because they had overcharged him on his bill. And he had been praying to meet that bill.
Well, here's the thing, man. He wasn't even praying. He was believing.
Yeah.
He says that all the time. He tells me these days, he's like, he's like, I don't pray the way I used to. I just believe now, and it just happens.
That's like Neo, bro. Like he's he's aware that he's the one. He's like, I believe.
Yeah,
he's beginning to believe.
Yeah, he said he saw that he was short on that bill, and he was like, I don't care. God's going to take care of it. It's all good. Yeah, my dad has possibly the most unwavering faith in God I've ever seen in a human being, and like that's
it's honestly shocking. You know what that tells me? What? That he's truly suffered.
Yeah,
he's truly suffered.
Oh, no doubt about it. He has gone through some extremely traumatic stuff. He's not had the easiest life. And he's had a lot of internal battles. But, you know, through it all, I'm kind of just now realizing this. I've always been able to see through all of it and see the core of him, which is a great, loving, exceptional person.
Yeah.
It's like, I always knew, you know, I don't want to air out his dirty laundry or anything, but you know, at times he would have a temper, and he could lose his temper.
Dads can suck.
Dads can suck.
Okay.
Yeah,
like it's okay.
Hashtag dads can suck.
Dads can suck sometimes.
For sure.
Normal.
And there are obviously reasons. You know, he had stuff with his parents societally. You know, society told him he has to be this way, and so yada yada yada. Whatever. The list is endless. But always, no matter how upset I was with him, or angry, or how much I felt like he was just being so unfair to me, or all of that, I could always look in his eyes and see straight through all of it, and see his spirit, which was like pure as gold. You know what I mean? And I'm so proud that he has reconciled the dark parts of him and brought them to the light. Like, that's all you did. You did that.
Yeah, there's something very real going on with your dad.
Oh, no doubt.
I'd like to say something.
Please.
Okay.
I think it might just be where I'm at, but I think like getting to the point where you forgive your parents and you understand that they're human beings and that it wasn't perfect, but it's okay.
Yeah. And you know what, man? That like, I wasn't really able to forgive my dad until I started loving myself.
I feel like I enjoy my relationship with my parents now, like more than I did as a child.
Oh, absolutely.
Because you just see them for who they really are.
100%.
And you're, I feel like, at least in my experience, the relationships changed and you're friends.
Yes.
And you're not living there. You're not locked in the house.
You're not like hiding for fear of being in trouble.
Hang out with them when you want to.
Yeah.
And who do you do that with? Friends.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So it's pretty
like,
awesome.
Yeah.
And an important part of that too, and I want to know if this was part of your experience, Alex. Did you have any, I don't know, like growing up, was there a lot of like your parents trying to sort of mold you to be a specific thing or guide you in a specific direction, put you in a box, anything like that?
Yeah. So my dad dropped out of high school.
Okay.
And became very like, let's say he lived the American dream, started his own business, became his own boss, won.
Hell yeah.
Like, you know, I mean, we're not millionaires. We'd have all the camera equipment if we were millionaires, but
I would have socks without holes in them.
We'd be on salary.
I'd buy Nick socks. Right?
Yeah.
But like, I like to say he won because there's a lot of people who don't get as lucky, but whatever. So my dad wanted me to go to school. My mom, who went to college, really wanted me to go to college. Mm-hmm. And in about junior year of high school, I was like, no, I'm not doing that. That was a
good
big
call.
one. Well, we'll find out.
College ain't for you.
Well,
what do you mean we'll find out? You're doing great.
Yeah, I mean, my thing is college is always going to be there.
Oh, sure,
sure. I couldn't justify the investment.
I'm just saying I think you made the right choice.
So you're saying that at a young age, while you were still living with your parents, you had the confidence to put your foot down and tell them you're not going to live according to their wishes.
Well, Nick, I'm extremely hard-headed. And
yo, that's the one thing my dad called me more than anything growing up.
He's hard-bodied.
Shut up. Were you the peanut gallery?
Oh, wait, no, I'm against that motherfucker.
Yeah, versus him, dude. Come on,
man.
I call Jenny the peanut gallery.
The reason that I ask is because I feel like that was the moment when I was never able to stand up for myself in that way, living at home with them, because it's like they control every aspect of your life essentially.
It's kind of hard to.
Yeah, it's hard to do that.
Dude,
you could make your life a living hell if you do that while you're living with them. Yeah.
Literally.
And so, but as soon as I left, it was a 180 flip. I very much started standing up for myself and not doing, the things that they say just because they say them, whatever, standing up for myself, but in a respectful, kind way. That's when we started to become friends finally.
And that is why your parents now call you when they're having issues.
Yeah, my whole family
And I don't
does.
just mean like together, but I just mean in general.
Oh, yeah.
Uncle's in trouble,
right?
Brother's in trouble, whatever. They call Nick. I've seen it, dude.
Yeah.
He's been here. And they're calling him. What do we do? His sister's calling him. What do we do? Anytime there's a problem, they call Nick. Because they know he don't fuck around.
Yeah, I don't.
He's gonna give it to you straight.
Yeah, I don't do any. I'm always very kind and cordial and sensitive and stuff like that. But like, I will never, ever, ever be the person that tells you what you want to hear.
Yeah.
Ever. I'm gonna tell you the straight up truth. And so every member of my family now, and I'm so happy for this. If they need anything at all, emotional advice, anything, they call me. And like, I hope it stays that way forever. I really do. I want them to keep relying on me.
You know what? I'm happy to report that.
Wait. This is a new segment. Happy to report an experience of Ryan Bledsoe.
When I was at his parents' house last time, and we were hanging out with his mom and dad, his dad went on a rant about how amazing you are, and he thinks you should be on camera.
Oh, yeah. I can't believe I haven't told you that
was
yet.
funny.
This is for you.
Yeah, my dad, he listened to the Divine Masculine episode, and he was like, man, you guys really got, this is the funniest thing. This is so funny.
I know what you're going to say.
He said, you guys got to let Alex talk more. He said, let Alex talk more. And I'm
I
like,
was
Dad,
like-
we are begging him to talk more.
Like he has full permission. He just chooses not to.
Yeah, he can talk as much as he wants. He's like, you got to get him on camera too. I was like, he doesn't want to be on camera. He wants to be a huge mystery.
He was like lecturing us.
Yeah.
Dude, when I was with my parents over Christmas, we were in like me and Jenny and Emily and my mom and Jack were like in the living room. I think Jeremy was there too. We were like watching a movie, and Dad's in his bedroom. He has his own TV in there, and he's watching something. Turns out he was watching like our New Year's episode, the Time episode.
Oh, cool.
And we're all like watching a movie, totally engaged, totally focused, and Dad just walks out. Starts like just commenting on the episode, but we're like way out of context. Meanwhile, we haven't recorded this shit in like a month.
Yeah.
I have no clue what he's talking about.
Yeah.
And it's been out for days. He walks out, starts commenting on it, and then he just goes, Alex is great, and walks away.
This is your dad?
Yeah. So both of our dads love you.
My heart.
Yeah.
He
Both
just
of
goes,
our-
Alex is great, and walks away. Didn't say anything. He didn't say why, nothing.
Yeah. So we
Well, we
want
know
to-
that man's wise.
Oh, shut up. Never mind, man. I was about to give you a compliment, but never mind. We're versus you. You suck.
Let's see. Do we
I'm
want
kidding.
to unpack more Alex family trauma, or do we want to call it?
Wait, how much time do we have?
We're over.
Okay, yeah,
Let's
we
save it.
definitely need to wrap it up.
Let's.
All right.
Well, I mean, do you want to run through it? Yeah, let's hear it. I want to hear from
All
you.
right. Well, just going off of the dad thing. Me and my dad, very much the same, very hard-headed, and we didn't get along throughout my entire childhood. And the person who really, really caught all of that was my little brother.
Really?
And it's because I like to call it, in the spirit of Jim Leahy, rest in peace.
Who?
Trickle down shit.
Jim Leahy?
Shitnomics.
Shit, no.
Yeah.
Trailer Park Boys?
That's correct. The late John Dunsworth, I think is the last name. But anyway, trickle down shitnomics. I get the shit handed to me from my dad because I did something. I was a dick.
Yeah.
And then I've got nowhere to go except my little brother. And I take full responsibility of that, and it's not right. And I regret it, but I was a child.
Yeah.
So I'd just like to take this moment to publicly apologize
Aw.
to Nick. And I'm very
Me?
sorry.
Aw.
No, my little brother Nick. He listens sometimes, but yeah, I was a dick. I'm very sorry.
But, you know, like you said, it wasn't your fault. You were a child, and you were literally only reflecting exactly what you were being given. It's
Yeah.
not your fault. But,
Yeah.
hey.
A lot of learning lessons, but hey.
Yeah.
And you
I'm
know
sorry.
what? That was karmically probably meant for your family to experience because, you know, all these years later in life, you reflect on it and, you know
You know
move
how to
forward from
act
it.
now. Y'all know you know how to act now. You know what's right and wrong.
And I keep reflecting on what Vincent told me, man.
Which part?
Dude, my past
That really
life.
rocked you, man.
It rocked me.
That was like
so
over 6
hard,
months
bro.
ago.
I'm in the Discord talking to Carnivore about it. Like
Shout
it's
out
months
Carnivore.
ago. Shout out Carnivore.
Yeah.
Dude, that
Cool
really
dude.
rocked you. I'm honestly shocked that like I feel like every time you reference that, it really moved you to your core.
Yeah. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Can't wait.
You know why?
Yeah.
It's because he found out he was a sexy prince
Yeah,
with
that's
gold bars in
literally
a
it.
past life.
Oh, I know.
That's
it.
the least surprising part.
Oh, shut! Okay, we're out of here, dude. We're out of. This is over.
All right, so this is it's not light being advocate versus gray advocate anymore. It's ego death versus massive fucking ego. A house divided.
All right, let's do it. 1, 2, 3. Bye,
Bye,
guys.
Thank you so much for watching. If you want to see more, check out our other videos.
And before you go, don't forget to subscribe. See you next week. Peace.